Welcome back. Well, back to our breaking news story for the evening. This coming in on this Tuesday evening, a statement released, of course, we hear from the presidency's office of a change to the cabinet. And I think one of the standout points certainly is the Justice Minister, Thembi Simelane, is no longer going to serve as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, but instead will take over the post of Minister of Human Settlements. And that, of course, leaves Mamoloko Kubai, who we understand to have been the Minister of Human Settlements, to now be moving into the post previously held by Thembi Simelane, that of Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. But what does this mean for the future of the Minister Simelane, one that has been in the throes of much controversy over an alleged loan linked to those that have also links to the VBS Bank. And of course, there have been over the months calls for her to explain exactly how that loan was acquired. And we've seen that come up multiple times. Of course, we've seen also in September, the Minister Thembi Nkadimeng in September appearing before Parliament to explain that loan, as well as the ANC Integrity Committee. And of course, there's the matter that she's also made her case to the President Cyril Ramaphosa. But the move from the Department of Justice to Human Settlements, what does this mean for decisions being made by the President? And certainly if more moves could be expected where she is concerned. And then, of course, there's the matter around whether or not there could be further steps that are taken against her. But we're going to be getting some analysis on this, and we'll be speaking to our very own Vuyo Mvoko, who's speaking to us live from Cape Town as we watch these developments closely. Lots of talk around what the future would look like for Thembi Nkadimeng. Is this a minister that is on her way out? Vuyo is live in Cape Town. Now, Vuyo, good evening to you. I mean, this is one of those announcements that we certainly were not expecting on this Tuesday evening, but there we have it, a swapping around of these posts. Any words that you were receiving there in Cape Town on the ground?
Exactly, Naledi. I mean, we've spent the day at Dainhays, which is right behind me. Behind those gates is where we've spent the most part of today, together, of course, with the President and about close to a dozen or so of his ministers, but of course Minister Nkadimeng not part of them, as the President was engaged in that binational commission with his Nigerian counterpart. Not a word, not a hint from the presidency today that this was going to happen. But if you look, of course, at what has actually transpired, where essentially the Minister of Justice and the Minister responsible for human settlements just merely swapped positions. Hardly, a cabinet reshuffle the way many people would see it. Perhaps the weight of the allegations has just become too much for the President. You'll recall that from reports that were previously published, the minister stood accused of having benefited handsomely, from someone who was involved, Gundo Investments, who were involved in, of course, the scandals that led to VBS folding away. And the minister kept, of course, denying this and dismissing the allegations. And many people would recall that she then said, this was over 3 months ago, she did say that she had submitted a report to the President. But to this day, we haven't heard from the President about what was contained in that report and what the President actually thought of the allegation. Perhaps The fact that the president has felt no need to actually remove her completely, but merely to swap them together with, of course, the Minister of Human Settlements suggests that the president, no doubt, still has confidence in her, but perhaps he only wanted to deal with that aspect of the bigger complaint, which was that how do you allow someone who is implicated in serious allegations of corruption have been leveled against her, and yet she is responsible, she's a member of the Justice Cluster of ministers, but also, or in particular, responsible for such important instruments in the fight against crime, your National Prosecuting Authority. That is probably the only explanation at this stage as to why the president acted the way he did.
Well, here's, and I'm wondering if this would be a coincidence, but certainly not, because less than an hour ago, the Daily Maverick, an investigation that has been run by Polly van Wyk and Kyle Cowan, and you'd remember, of course, that Kyle Cowan as well, having been watching, I suppose, even the movement of money where Nkadimeng is concerned, they released, just within the hour, the first part of a 3-part series that unpacks her income and expenses as well as assets between the years 2016 and 2020. And we are very, very interesting here, where they say that in the year 2018, while she was still a mayor of Polokwane, the two investigative journalists found that she spent 569% more than her annual annual income. So, I mean, it's quite the revelation that you have this statement coming out at the same time, this massive investigation that is now being published by the Daily Maverick. Could those two things be linked?
I don't think there's any doubt. In fact, the allegations surfaced yesterday when the Daily Maverick published that they have the first in a 3-part series, which they did say, or admit at least, that it wasn't as complete as they would have wanted, but there was prima facie evidence of wrongdoing on the part of the minister. Well, some people heard no wrongdoing because you can't actually tell because they don't have the full information. But what they're saying is that she's clearly living beyond her means in a way that could not be explained by her salary, her benefits, and everything that went with that. It cannot be sheer coincidence that hours later the president has then made this move. But as I was saying, the president clearly still either doesn't believe the story or has faith in his minister, or both, or even more, because it has been what couldn't be explained is what is contained to what. Remember the minister when she did say or boasted about the fact that she had actually given the president a full and comprehensive report, which the president was looking at. 3 months later, the president still hasn't spoken about that report, even if it's to say, I've looked at the report, I believe what she has told me, and I'm not going to do anything about it. The question is, why did it decide to act, but only act in the manner that he has just announced?
Yeah.
Hopefully, not too long. From now, we will get a fuller explanation than a rather terse cabinet reshuffle announcement, if, of course, you want to call it that.
And we're going to stay with you, Vuyo, because I know that you'll be gathering information where you are in Cape Town as well. And as those pieces start to come together, keep us updated. So stay with us as well, because then we'll have now joining our conversation with our very own Vuyo Mvoko. We're joined from the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, the Executive Secretary Lawson Naidoo, joining us to get reaction to this cabinet reshuffle. Lawson, a good evening to you. Did you see this coming?
Good evening, Naledi. Thank you very much. No, I think it's taken us all by a little bit of surprise, although I suppose with the additional revelations that you and Vuyo have just spoken about that came out in the media earlier today, the pressure is certainly mounting on Thembi and Nkadimeng and on the president, of course, to take some action. The action that he's taken, I suppose, is not the kind of action we would have expected, given the gravity of the allegations against the minister. And simply moving her from justice to human settlements does not relieve the president of the problem. We still have somebody sitting in cabinet who is clearly conflicted in terms of the kinds of the conflict that she's exposed herself to, is exposed to, the risk that that poses to not just her as a cabinet minister, but to the whole of cabinet. And it really called for much stronger and firmer action to be taken by the president.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that has been said over and over again in, you know, all this, I suppose, saga around her loan allegedly from Gundo linked to VBS, Lawson, has been she's the Minister of Justice. So the optics of it are very concerning.
Well, indeed they were. And, you know, as has been said, I think by many people many times before, the very least the president ought to have done is to have placed her on suspension or special leave pending the resolution of these allegations. Certainly her position as Minister of Justice was becoming increasingly untenable given the efforts that are being made by the NPA and the IDAC to pursue the VBS cases and prosecutions, but simply moving her from justice to constitutional to human settlements, as I say, does not solve the problem for the president. He still has a minister sitting inside his cabinet who faces very serious allegations of wrongdoing. And if these are proven to be true and charges are actually brought against her, it'll be highly embarrassing for the president, for he will have been seen not to have acted when he had the opportunity to do so.
I want to look at some of the, I suppose, the work that's been done here by these investigative journalists, Lawson. I mean, the numbers that they share, staggering, I think, to say the very least, right? What Paulie van Wyk and Kyle Cowan have written about is that between March 2018 and February 2019, she is said to have spent 2.8 million rand, while her post-annual income tallied to only 500,000 rand. So, you know, there's the question around where did that money come from? And so, according to what we hear in this investigation, is there's a lot more to look at than just a 570,000 loan taken by the Justice Minister. That there could be a lot more to look at. What do you make of that, Lawson?
Well, indeed, there may be a lot more to look at, and there may be other aspects of the relationship that we're unaware of, even at this stage. And that is something that will have to be pursued by the law enforcement agencies, and one assumes and certainly hopes that they are looking at all of these issues, and that when the time is ripe, charges will be brought if they feel that they have sufficient evidence to do so.
All right. Let's bring Vuyo back in here, because I know that you're outside Parliament. I see that there's you know, some law enforcement vehicles outside the area. Are we expecting any sort of address, any sort of activity? I mean, this is a really big sort of announcement to lay on the country at this time.
I don't expect any. The way the presidency has dealt with this matter, say sending a few sentences out to say this is what has happened. And of course, I mean, in my life as a journalist over the decades, this certainly doesn't count as a cabinet reshuffle as such. Clearly, the president is trying to deal with something or trying to make a problem go away. Will he or won't he succeed? That, of course, remains to be seen. But two important things or factors in all of this and the way they've had to deal with it. One is the Daily Maverick investigators did reach out to the minister to seek explanations to what were clearly holes that they were able to punch in whatever narrative, or certainly with the facts that they had. In front of them. And the response from the minister's office was that they had noted what they call a lifestyle, unofficial lifestyle, that Daily Maverick had decided to conduct, but they wouldn't give answers to the questions that were being asked. The second problem is, of course, how the presidency is dealing with this particular matter, deciding to just swallow swap the ministers around, not give any explanations, but also the fact that 3 months later, 3 months after he was supposedly given a report by the minister, he couldn't say whether or not he was happy with the report, or if he was happy, he has decided to keep his minister because he felt the minister has done nothing wrong, or whatever explanations he may have been given suffice, and they don't warrant him taking any action against the minister. And I think going forward, a lot is going to rest on the information that we are yet to receive months after these allegations surfaced.
Yeah, there's lots to talk about, and so we will keep Lawson Naidoo on the line with us. And it's important to note, of course, that this week would have seen the, now we can say, outgoing Justice Minister Thembi Nkadimeng attending the Assembly of States Parties at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. But she is no longer Justice Minister. We're going to get more reaction on the other side of this short break. Stay with us.